Thank you very much for being here at this important program. So we're here in a fairly timely fashion, and we have a lot of important people in the room, so we're going to get started right away. And in doing so, I would like to introduce Mindy Bachstein from John Jay College, External Affairs. Mindy?
Good afternoon. Okay, this is really exciting because when Carol and I got together and Kat joined on the second meeting, we had this plan and this vision. And thanks to all of you, and especially to our honored guests, this has come to fruition. And this will be an annual event, which Carol will speak more about shortly. So I have the pleasure and the privilege of welcoming our opening speaker, a really good friend of John Jay College, a good friend of leaders, of women advocates, good friend of the west side of Manhattan, council member Helen Rosenthal, who represents John Jay in the city council and, of course, the Upper West Side. She is, like I said, a good friend of the college, but more importantly, she is a fierce advocate for justice, social justice, gender justice, environmental justice, housing, pay equity, you name it, she's involved in those issues. And they resonate here at the college. You see our brand every day for those of you that attend college here, take classes here, and for those that aspire to come to college here. All of you from Power Play, see that brand. That brand, we walk and talk that brand every day. And Helen Rosenthal, Council Member Rosenthal, does the same thing at City Hall. She is a staunch advocate, as I said, for people with disabilities. She is a staunch advocate for environmental justice, for pedestrian safety, and of course for women's issues as the co-chair of the Women's Caucus. So you don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from her and for our amazing panelists. So without further ado, I welcome up to the podium our opening speaker, a good friend, Councilmember Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mindy. Wow, you're hired. Can you just do that every time before I speak, like at a hearing? Hey everyone, good to see you. For how many people is this your first time, thank you, at John Jay? Ooh, you're lucky. Good, welcome. It's a just tremendous college, and you'll have fun both hearing from the speakers and then getting to watch the game tonight. This is a great facility. So I'm here to talk a little bit and introduce the topic of Title IX. Everyone thinks they know what Title IX is, but I'm guessing, because I didn't know this morning before I got this information, that you don't know the following. First of all, Title IX, who knows who signed it, which president signed it into law? Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon signed it into law in 1972, and it prohibits sex discrimination in any educational program or activity receiving any type of federal aid, right? So if you're at a private college where they don't get any federal money, they're not required to follow the Title IX regulations. So Title IX covers 10 key subject areas, including athletics. The other areas addressed by the law are access to higher education, career education, education for pregnant and parenting students, employment, the learning environment, math and science, sexual harassment, standardized testing, and technology. So when you're listening today and hearing about Title IX, primarily in the area of athletics, remember in your mind's eye that this applies to pretty much all areas of your life. And to the extent that you, as a young lady, as a woman, are not getting equal access compared to a different gender, that's actually illegal according to Title IX, and you have to speak up. And here's what I'm going to end on. You have to speak up. If anything in your life, if you're at school, if you have a job, if you have an internship, and something, a way that primarily an older male interacts with you, if it feels sketchy, it is sketchy. And speak up. Speak up. It is the case now that you should expect in school, in a workplace, in an internship, you should expect that your voice will be taken seriously. And if it's not, you can talk to a lawyer. But if something feels sketchy, feels like there's a hint of sexual harassment, that's called a hostile environment. It's the definition of a hostile environment. And you should expect not to have to work in, go to school in a hostile environment. That's normal. All right? So I want a show of hands that you will pledge to me that if you ever have an experience where a peer, a male peer, or a boss starts to harass you in some way that feels sexual, feels inappropriate, will you just raise your hand as a promise to me that you will tell someone about it? Okay? All right. Thank you. And to the gentleman, I appreciate you're not laughing, but you almost pledged, so I really appreciate that too. Support the women in your lives. If anyone has that experience, take them seriously and help them make sure that they're working in an environment that's not hostile. Because if it is a hostile environment, that means that the person can't do the work that they're there to do. They can't experience their own potential of who they are because they're too busy fending off that. All right? It's really nice to see you. Enjoy the panel, everyone.
Thank you, Councilmember. Now I'd like to introduce our Deputy Director for Athletics, Cal Davis.
I'd like to thank you all again for being here for this year's event of National Girls and Women in Sport Day. This event really holds a lot of importance for our department because we really value the role of women in our industry and because we value the incredible positive impacts that sport have on our lives of young girls and women around the world. Today, you're going to hear from a variety of perspectives on the value of sports from women who reach the epitome of success in their industries and in their sport. You'll find, however, that every young girl and woman has a story of her own. You'll also find that there's a common thread in these stories, linking our experiences together and strengthening them when we share them with one another. So as a young girl, sports brought me fun and friends. As I grew older, sports kept me healthy, brought me more fun and more friends, but it also started bringing me challenges and conflict, goals and time crunches. I started navigating concepts of leadership, like what it meant to lead by example, how it felt to motivate without criticizing, and choosing when to bring up some tough issues to a coach or a peer. It's easy to look at sports and the value that's on the surface for them. I mean, those surface level effects, let's call it teamwork, healthy living, work ethic, integrity, sportsmanship, that alone are good reasons to be involved in sports. What I hope you all understand today is that there are levels upon levels of impact for each of us who value sport. For me, I definitely not be in the position I am today without my involvement in sports. The experience, maturity, and confidence that guides me all came from that participation. It's helped me learn some life lessons before I ever got to college, and certainly before I got to my career. It made me the most prepared person for the obstacles that inevitably come our way as women in the world. So enjoy the panel, and please feel free to share your stories afterwards with the women in the room this afternoon. Thank you, and enjoy.
Thank you, Kat. And now, to introduce our panelists, Assistant Athletic Director, Corey Berg.
It is my honor to introduce our panel for this evening. Should they come up as I introduce them? Okay, awesome. First, we have Gail Marquis. Please join us on the stage. Gail is a former Team USA American basketball player. She competed in the 1976 Olympics, which was also the first Olympic Games that included women's basketball as part of the agenda. She won a silver medal as part of the team that defeated Czechoslovakia, which is awesome. And after her time in basketball, she went on to become a Wall Street executive. Welcome, Gail. What? Oh, okay. And we also have Jackie Meadow. Jackie, please come up. Jackie is the owner and founder of Coachability, a sports consulting business focused on providing comprehensive team development services. She is a former athletics director and head women's basketball coach at City College. Hold your booze. A position which she held for 8 years, and during which she was Coach of the Year 4 times. Jackie is also a dual sport athlete, as she played both basketball and softball at SUNY Oneonta. Welcome, Jackie. And then we're good. And now Carol's going to come back up, and she's going to lead the Q&A session. So welcome.
So Teresa Edwards was detained for this evening. We hope that she'll be able to join us at the game tonight. So I'm going to ask Councilwoman Rosenthal to join us on the panel. So one of the good things that you learn about by being a woman who makes decisions every day is that you can just step in and get done what needs to get done. So I'd like to start out by having our panelists tell a little bit about your story as far as education goes, and your story about athletics and the role that being an athlete and being a person of physical activity, how that has helped you and played a role in your life, please.
Yes, it's working. Hi, my name's Gail Marquis, and I have a very long and rich life, but to kind of put it just in a couple of sentences, I'm originally from Queens, New York, St. Albans, Jamaica, Queens, New York. And I was a hometown girl, a local girl. I went to Queens College, which was right there. And then I had the chance to compete for our Olympic team, our national team. I played in the very first time they had women's basketball in the Olympics. So I'm so glad I was able to be on that team, represent New York City, because there was only 2 of us, me, Gail Marquis, and Nancy Liebman. A lot of you know Nancy from Far Rockaway. We were the New York City products, and we had to deal with those ladies that had them southern drawls, and we couldn't even understand what they were saying. But we persevered. We beat Japan, Czechoslovakia, a lot of teams. We didn't beat Russia, though, but still we were able to hang in there and come home with a silver medal. So it's the first time women's basketball was played, and it was the first time that we earned a medal, so I'm very proud of that. And from there, I wasn't done playing. There was no pro league, so I went to Europe, and I stayed, lived, and trained in Europe. I played in a team in the south of France, and just learned how to speak French. I went to the university there, transferred credits back, and the team was absolutely terrible. But if you're going to be on a bad team, you be on a team in the south of France, okay? You got to play in a bad location. The south of France is the place to play. And I'll tell you, from that, I could keep going on about my whole history. I worked on Wall Street because I was very competitive. I found it hard to go to the elementary and high schools and deal with y'all, okay? Because I was very disciplined, and I couldn't handle high schools that were back and forth. Junior high school, I said sit, and running around. I said, I'm going to Wall Street where it's competitive. They listen when you speak, and that's where I ended for 25 years. But now I circle back around, and I work at New Jersey City University, which is an area college, local university in Jersey City. And I'm a director of a whole bunch of things, but I get to work with students and young minds and entrepreneurs again. So that's me in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Jackie?
Well, before I get to myself, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but Gail Marquise was one of my role models when I was a young kid, kind of sitting where you are. Obviously, I grew up in Queens, and as a Queens College graduate, I got to go to Queens College, which was the big thing back then. They were the big team. I had, books and cutouts of all the, great players, and Cavalis was, the coach back then, and, there was no, pros at that time. The following year after the Olympics, I went to my first basketball camp, which if you haven't gone to camp, I definitely recommend it. Gail Marquise came to my camp, and I was in awe, and still am. And, if you haven't seen her commercial, check it out on TV. It's fantastic. So just a little plug, because, again, growing up, you guys should have a role model that you look up to on a higher level, whether you're a teacher, your parents, respect them, but certainly, have somebody that you emulate and look up to in the future. As far as my career goes, start as a basketball player, I went through high school, college, got a scholarship, realized that the scholarship was just a scholarship, and I didn't focus more on academics and what I really wanted to be a coach, and I wanted to be a teacher and kind of follow in the footsteps of my parents. So left the scholarship, went on to Oneonta and graduated there. I started in CUNY back in the day actually at Hunter, and that's where my basketball career kind of really took off, as well as my administrative responsibilities. And then I finally went to City College and took over there as the athletic director. My role as a coach, to me, it wasn't so much about me. It was more about those students that I empowered to learn and to pursue. And to me, all my Facebook friends, they're all my former players. And from, back, when I first started coaching, I'm still in contact with a lot of them, and that's what it's really all about, is the relationships. I don't really remember the scores of my games. I do remember the championships that I won, because they're memorable, but more about the relationships that I build and the camaraderie that I have with all those players. So that's what sports is really about. Thank you.
Helen?
All right, so I was always intimidated by people like you. So it's like beyond wonderful to be on a panel with both of you, even though it was sort of a mistake. But that I'm just filling in. I have to say, and similarly, I'm in awe of all you young women who are engaged in sports. I had a very academic career and got my college degree and master's, and pursued my work in city services and continue to do that now as a council member. And when I was younger, there was really no opportunity for somebody who wasn't particularly athletic to get engaged, which I certainly wasn't. But the one thing I always loved to do was bicycle. And that's something that I've continued to do every single year. When I've been on college campuses, I would bike everywhere. And then now living on the Upper West Side, I actually bike to work down at City Hall. And the one thing I'll say is that exercise in general is incredibly important in your life. So to the extent that you're an athlete and you get to exercise every day, I'm totally envious that you get to do that. I would encourage you to remember to make it a part of your life. As you, get older, find stuff that you enjoy doing as an athlete and keep doing them. Whether it's being on a basketball league or running laps or whatever it is you guys do. Swimming. Great, great exercise. So, thanks for having me.
Okay, so first question for the panelists, and Jack, you had mentioned this word. Who is the most important person in your life, or the person that you looked up to and had a really large influence, and why?
Well, I guess everyone can say, I like to say my mom, Geraldine Marquis, she was one of my big influences because she just let us do what we wanted to do. My father too, but my mother was one of my big influences. She was always coming to the games. My father worked nights, so he usually didn't come to my basketball games. And they were kind of semi-interested. So a lot of times you have these soccer moms or these other moms that get real excited about their children in sports. My parents were not that. They were just happy that I was safe. I came home at night. I wasn't hurt. They knew who my friends were, so it wasn't really over the top. But I also like to talk about another person who really influenced me, and I probably didn't meet her until 30 years later in my life, and that was Billie Jean King. And all of you know Billie Jean King is the great tennis player. So when you look at TV or you go to the New York Liberty games or you come here to watch the ladies play tonight, you're allowed to pick some of them as your role models, as people that you admire. And I admired Billie Jean King because it was a time when she was the top player, tennis player in the country, in the world. But she was still being bad-mouthed, you know what that is, bad-mouthed by the other side, meaning sportscasters, not so much men, but sportscasters like, oh, she's just a girl playing. They wouldn't even call her a woman. Then the opportunity came for her to play against this great player who challenged her. His name was Bobby Riggs. She would call him Mr. Riggs, and he would call her Billie Jean. All right? Well, you had to be respectful because he was older. But she beat the tail out of him in Houston, right on national TV, a big arena and everything. From there, I understood why I was so competitive in everything that I did. I understood why I was upset when I would go to my high school gym and they wouldn't let us play on the big court. The girls had to go play on another court. Or when we had a game and the clock didn't work. Or when we had uniforms that didn't match or we didn't have uniforms. But the boys' team had uniforms, and the boys' team had a clock that worked, and the boys' team had referees. So I understood why I was so anxious and angry and was ready to fight for everything. So my mom was one of my first, and my mom and my dad, some of my first people who I looked up to, and then, of course, Billie Jean King, who I didn't get to meet for another 25 or 30 years.
Great, thank you.
I think I was a bad kid. I did some crazy things when I was probably your age. You know, when my mom said, you know, don't spray paint your bike, I spray painted my bike. When she said, you know, don't do something, I always did it. And I think I'm still that rebel. And it wasn't until later on in life that my parents are the biggest influences in my life. I realized that my ethics, my core values, you know, the way I conduct myself on a regular basis is because of my parents. Certainly as a coach, I look up to so many coaches. I've read, you know, all their books, the late Pat Summitt, Tara Vanderveer, who just scored, she just won her 1,000th game at Stanford. Certainly Gino. So I have all their books. I have their videos. I've watched all that. So there are coaches out there that have influenced my style of coaching that I certainly look to as role models. But I have to say both my parents, who are teachers, retired now and enjoying life down in South Carolina, were the two biggest influences in my life. And I know that when I was sitting even in college, I didn't recognize that until now. So respect mom and dad because they are your biggest influences.
Always a good thing. I also really admired Billie Jean King. I remember watching that game and feeling like, you know, I was really rooting for her. And I remember that the sportscasters were not rooting for her. And they were still making fun of her during the game. And the dignity with which she played. You know, you're right. You're right. She called him Mr. Riggs, and she was respectful. She was a great athlete. When she won, she didn't, you know, glorify it. She was dignified, and yeah, I think that had a big effect on who I am as a person. So I urge you to Google Billie Jean King. She was amazing.
And if you can Google Billie Jean King versus Bobby Riggs,
Bobby Riggs, right.
it's probably out there on YouTube. Just check it out. Just check out the ending, because look at the beginning, because they brought her out on a big cart that said, you know,
Oh, it was
they brought
so
her out. And then at the end, when she beat him, shook his hand.
Right. But the media were making fun of it. You know, that was the feeling you got, that this was, oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. And she wouldn't have any of that. She just did her job. It was very good.
Know your job, do your job. So, and some of us in the room do remember exactly where we were when that game was played.
Yep, same.
So, next question for our panels. What have been some of your greatest challenges, both, let's have one for athletics, but also one in your career? What was a really large obstacle that you came into that you found a way to get through, over, or around?
So can I jump in, actually, because I'm living it a little bit? So I just got appointed to the Mayor's Commission on Gender Equity, and we had a conversation today about pay equity. And I was reminded that, yes, it was almost 30 years ago now, but I had a job in city government, and came in as a supervisor, and I remember talking to my peer supervisor. I covered the health committees, the health agencies, he covered housing. We were at the exact same level, we started the exact same week, and we happened to share with each other, and I think he must have started, what our salaries were. And his was $5,000 more than mine. And I said, what's up with that? And I didn't know it was a thing, right? And he said, well, you know, when I interviewed for the job, I told them I'm taking care of a family. And I remember like going, hey, yeah, okay, thanks about that, and walking right down to HR and saying, you're out of your mind, you're paying me that, and you're gonna give me the retro back to day one. And they did it. They did it. I mean, I was just very sure of myself, and they did it. But on the conversation today, on the conference call, I realized not much has changed, right? We just passed a law saying that employers cannot ask what your previous salaries were, because that's a way that women get the short end of the stick. Maybe they had a lower paying job. But it's okay to ask. It's okay to talk about it now, actually, to ask your peers what their salary is. And know that you should be earning the same amount as your male counterparts. Pay Equity Day is coming up. I think it's March 14th. And we'll announce that there have been advances for white women, but not for women of color. That women of color over the last 10 years continue to be paid. It's like 70 cents on the dollar. And I think for white women, it's maybe 76 cents. That's not right, and that's not how it's supposed to be. So know your rights and speak up for yourself. Yeah.
That's great. And I have to say, it's really important for some of you who are sitting here that aren't in the workforce yet, but will be, or maybe your parents are, to really recognize those things. And I think the most important thing is she had the guts to go to HR, Human Resources, and say something. And most women, unfortunately, don't. They kind of suck it up, and they go back to their office, and they do a great job, but they don't stand up for themselves. So I empower all of you, again, if you, your friends, your family are in those situations, empower yourselves to speak up. Getting onto my challenge, don't let these heels fool you. I think my biggest challenge was my height, and the fact that I chose to play basketball as my sport. I was always, trying to prove myself, whether it be as a young player coming up, trying to play with the boys, in the CYO and playing in the CYO in New York City, and then again, in the workforce and trying to get into a man's world in athletic administration and coaching. It's a good old boys club, and if you don't understand what that is, when you're the only female in the room and you're dealing with all males, there's a certain camaraderie amongst males that exclude females. And unfortunately, here we are in 2017, and it still exists. More women are getting opportunities, which is awesome, but it's going to take you guys to come to a forum like this to listen. Maybe you're not going to catch everything that we say, but be empowered again to stand up for yourself and don't allow the good old boys club, to take over and really have a voice. And when you think you know something or you want to do something, go do it, all right? And that's why I'm sitting here after 25, plus years of a successful coaching career, successful athletic administration, and I got to start my own business, which I'm just thrilled and I love what I'm doing.
And that's the beauty of sports, especially girls and women being in sports, is that the difference is that we can say things. We have a backbone. We've gotten sweaty, we let our hair get messed up, and we still get down in defensive position, or we still get right back in the batter's box and look that pitcher in the eye and say, come on with it, And that's the difference with a lot of girls, with a lot of women that go into the workforce. They can't do that. They might get approached by another employee, male or female, and they kind of back down. But if you get a chance to play sports, regardless of what level you're at, you have a certain strength around you. First of all, just the fact that you want to go out there and try something, maybe bump into another player, fall down, scuff knees, get back up, get tired, that's all part of the work ethic. That's all part of the building. And this is for male and female. I know we got guys back there, but it's also for the guys too. You have to be able to fall down, get up. You have to be able to have coaches that are right in your face, hollering at you. One even spit on me one time. Don't you dare wipe it off. All right? You got to just be right in there with it. And that's the game changer. A lot of fathers want their daughters to play sports, want their sons to play sports, because it makes you so much stronger. It puts you in different situations. You wouldn't get that just babysitting or working at the Gap or working at McDonald's. You're not going to get it there. This is like an interaction back and forth. You asked me what's the greatest moment in my life is that Olympic medal. You see the glory, you see the uniforms, you see me bending over, they put it on. Not a day goes by in my life, I don't think about the tryouts. The tryouts are what made me. Going to those tryouts, getting cut, getting sent home so many times. And my mother, God bless her, she would always meet me at LaGuardia with a big old sign so everybody knew I was a failure. But I would go back, and then one year I didn't come home right away. Mommy, I'm not coming home. Tell Daddy I'm not coming home. I'm staying here. I made the Olympic team. Okay, that's what you do it for. And then you have those great achievements. But you need those great achievements, because then you get in a situation where I go down to Wall Street and I work at some of these companies, and they have never seen the likes of me before. They haven't seen a woman that would step into their environment and try to sell stocks or bonds, or they haven't seen a person of color. So as I'm talking about me, Gail, guys, stuff can happen to you too, all right? Ladies, Caucasian ladies, things can happen to you too, that you step into an environment that they're not used to seeing you in. And am I going to turn around and get the E-train and go on back to Queens? No. I came to Wall Street because I knew it was tough. I knew there was nobody down there that looked like me. But I stepped in that room, and I asked for the job. And they probably put me at the smallest desk, and I didn't ask about the pay scale, so I know I got shortchanged. But it's on my resume I was there, and I stayed there. And I kept moving up. And even when they said stuff, I remember being at my little desk, and there'd be a whole bunch of guys in the back there talking about the games. and the World Series, and I just tipped my head down just to do my work. They would tell the dirty jokes back there. I wasn't able to tell them, knock those jokes off. I don't want to hear that joke. All right? But you can tell them, I don't want to hear that joke. And you can press charges. I don't want to hear that joke. All right? So you have to stand up. And so you had the best of my life, putting an Olympic medal on, and that's what prepares me to go into a workforce and step into a room where nobody there looks like me, but I want this job, I can do this job. Give me a chance.
Can I follow up on that? Do we have time for a little follow-up on
Absolutely, we have
that?
a couple of-
I so agree with you. And the competitive sports world really trains you for real life. And it's important that you keep doing what you're doing for all of those reasons. Because I'll say that in the working world, it is no cakewalk. You know, every day I get confronted with some gaggle of men doing something. And it's important to me to just barge right in. You know, on the city council, on our New York City Council, there are 51 members, and only 13 are women. And it's hard to find a woman in the room often for me. And, you know, that doesn't stop me. I know that
Doesn't mean you're going to leave.
doesn't mean I'm going to leave, nor does it mean that I'm not going to speak up. And my colleagues know they're a little bit afraid of me, and they should be. They should be, because I'm going to call them out on all the stuff that they do. And so don't expect it to be all fixed and better by the time that you're working, you know, for a whole bunch of
But
complicated
we don't want it.
reasons.
We don't want it to go backwards either.
No, but don't let it go backwards.
Don't give up any ground.
That's right.
So I'm going to give you a second to think about this question, and that is, how can this audience pay it forward? Why, I actually recognize another group in the room, and they did this to me because I asked them, not because they did this for me, because it's important and they know it, and not because they were directed by their coach to do here. So I just wanted to recognize our two seniors of our men's basketball team who came down here. Right? We talked
Thank
a little
you.
bit about the fact that Title IX and girls and women in sport are just important if you're a fella than if you're a woman, because all of us have relatives that are female. And so it's important that everyone gets on the supportive side of equality. Whatever that equality piece is, whether it's in sport or in life, that equality and everybody being fair and have the same shot is really, really important. And so it's important for the men too in room. And so thank you very much, gentlemen. I really appreciate that you came. And thank you for the rest of the gentlemen in the room too. We really appreciate it. We know that it's important to you, and we appreciate your support in our struggle. Okay, so how can the people in this audience, how can they pay it forward? How can they keep this momentum going forward and not let us go backwards?
Well, I would say first of all, is just play. Get on a team. Get out there. Be seen. Let your hair get messed up, all right? And go back. But you got to play. You have to be out there and compete. Maybe you get the scholarship. I didn't get a scholarship. They hadn't invented them yet, so I didn't have a scholarship. But I would have gotten one, I'm sure.
They didn't invent it for women yet.
Oh, that's true. For women, put the asterisk there. They didn't have them for women. But still, I wanted to play. And after the 4 years of playing college ball, and getting an Olympic medal just to say it's all over, I said I want to keep going. So I went to Europe to play and was one of the first women playing in Europe. And again, didn't have anybody that looked like me there, but a jump shot, a crossover dribble is a great equalizer. It's like it's a universal language. Just keep shooting, just keep scoring. So what can you do is play, is get on the teams. And what the guys can do also is be supportive. You know, let her play. You know, don't say she's looking goofy because she's in some kind of warm-up pants or whatever you wear now. Just get out there, play, and be a part of it. And I'll tell the guys, I used to tell a lot of men, you know, you're going to have daughters. And I believe there's no different tax rate for having a boy versus a girl. So if your daughter's going to a school and she's not getting a chance to have nice uniforms, playing time, a full court, good equipment, or she's not getting a chance, I believe you pay the same amount of taxes. And unless you get a discount for having a girl versus a boy, your daughters are allowed to play. Your daughters are allowed to be out there. So just put it in the back of your head when you start to have kids or you have nieces or godchildren, they're allowed to play. So I charge all the girls in the audience here and the young women is to get out there and play and be a part of it and take somebody with you, most importantly. There's somebody out there might be a little scared, a little nervous. I used to take my friends with me to the schoolyard because I wanted to play against those guys, but it really was easy if I could get one other girl to go with me. It was hard when I had to do it by myself. But you can get one more. You take one more with you. You don't have to go by yourself. Okay, just go play.
Come on, Gail, once you beat one guy, they all want to challenge you, I know.
Almost. They still want to
You
challenge
beat
me.
all of them, I know.
$5 a basket. I don't play for free. I'm a professional. I'm a professional.
So pay it forward. Here's what I would say. I have two thoughts, and I know all the college players in the back there. Women's sports, there's a lot of drama. Am I right? There's drama? Yeah. And for you young ones, maybe you haven't had it yet, but you know what? It's time to limit the drama. Support each other. All right, women to women, girls to girls, you have to support. Sometimes we're so competitive that we want to step on people to get ahead, rather than embracing people and helping people. Two people can get ahead together rather than trying to step on somebody. And use that. If you're both going for, the same pitching position, that's okay. Both work on your pitching together, and even if somebody eventually will get the starting spot, you keep working harder and maybe your turn will come. There's always a chance, but help each other. And the second thing is be a mentor to somebody else. I don't care, even if you're in middle school or in college, doesn't matter. Find somebody and mentor them. Get them involved in sports, all right? And then go out and work in a camp, all right? I know that John Jay hosts many camps. Get involved, whether it be a sports camp or otherwise. Find somebody that you can mentor and find a mentor as well. And that's how you pay it forward.
Hi. First of all, I've never heard the term pay it forward. I love hanging out with sports people. So I'm going to pick up on both those things for my working world, but it's very similar, and that is have a friend who's with you on these things and that you can talk to and trust and work it out. In my world, the similar situation is, and this happened to me for like 30 years, and I've only recently gotten over it. But I would be in a room with a bunch of men, I'm the only woman there. I would say something, I'd have an idea, and I'd say something, and generally either the next comment or the comment after that, a guy would say the exact same darn thing, and then everyone would say, oh yeah, let's do that. And I'd be like, I think I'm sitting right here. And finally, what I started doing, whether it was male or female, I started having a friend in the room who we would decide we would support each other during the meeting. And when one of us would say something that sounded like an idea, or one of us gave the other one a jab before you said it, the other one would say, hey, that's a great idea. Let's talk about Helen's idea. And so you sort of, you have to play smart. You have to play smart. If there's stuff going on out there, use your friends. You use them to bring them out onto the court with you. You're talking about playing sports together and getting rid of the drama. I mean, drama is like the rest of your life. I'm in the city council. I feel like I'm in high school again. It's unbelievable. But think hard about it. Know that you and your idea is probably right and good, and that there is somebody else, probably your friend, who's having the same thought or would help you in making a mark, and know that it's good. Ask your friend, and be in it together. It's great.
And, I just want to add really quickly off of what Jackie was saying about the drama. A lot of times you try out for teams or positions and somebody else gets it. Maybe it's an upperclassman, but you have to learn from it. whether you think you should have had it or not, just kind of learn from that situation. Get back in there, work even harder. You look at this guy, Tom Brady, who just won. You know, he wasn't the starting quarterback when he went to New England. It was Drew Bledsoe. And Drew was in there. What happened? Drew gets hurt. All right? So, hey, Brady, Tim Brady, get up there. That's not even his name. He gets up there. He starts throwing. He holds onto that starting spot and doesn't give it up. Hall of Famer, 5 Super Bowls. You know the history. That's how it happens. So don't get catty. Don't badmouth your teammate. Do not badmouth your teammate. Don't even badmouth the opponent. Just look them dead in the eye. Put that poker face on. Get that game face going. You don't have to smile. All right? Give them that face that I'm going to get you. I got your I'm going to get your number. You don't have to say a thing to them, but put it back on you to work harder. No cattiness, no back and forth. No, I never could do that talking that they do. I could never do that. I would get so confused. I couldn't do that. I just keep my mouth closed and I would play. And really, you kill them with kindness, and you just make the shot. You make the step. You get to the basket. You touch it first. You hit the home run. Whatever. That's where you leave it on the field. Okay. That's where you make your mark. You don't have to say a thing.
Before I ask of our panel the last question, does anyone in the audience have a question that you would like to ask our panel or panelists? Either speak loudly or go to the mic. Stand up. That a girl.
Okay, so you mentioned how you worked in Kate Equity, right? So I know that between women and men's teams, especially in the NBA and other leagues, there's a huge pay gap.
Yeah.
So I'm
Why?
wondering how that plays into what you do. Like, do you work on anything in specific about athletics, or have any ideas about what that's going to look like in the future, if that's going to minimize or if it's going to improve?
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a great question. That's a great question. And the way I'd be hopeful about the answer to that question is actually taking Gail's advice of keep playing and keep getting better. Because I think the reason, I mean, I have lots of feelings about how athletes are paid and how some athletes are paid more than other athletes. But, you know, it's a matter of who brings in the money, right? So it's true in the movie industry where female leads get paid less than the male leads. I don't have a good answer.
Well,
Give another
I would
answer for me.
Go ahead.
I would Google the national women's soccer team.
Yes.
And right now, that could change a lot of inequities that go on in athletics as well as in other industries. Well, they're the easiest one that you can compare both the men's team and the women's team because the amount of games, there's a whole criteria of different things that they equal out on, different than the NBA versus WNBA, where the seasons are much longer in the NBA versus WNBA. There's a lot of variations in other sports. But soccer is a little different, and they bring in the same amount. The only thing that is different, I think, is the advertising and some of the TV contracts. But game for game, I think it's the same. So Google that. That lawsuit, if the women's team wins, could change, you know, the way we view athletics, inequities in the pay scale. So check that out.
Explain the lawsuit, just real quick.
Well, again, the women's team, I think it was this past season, 2016, they recognized that once the information was made public, that the women's team was paid much less individually per person. And when the women's team, from what I understand, went to contract, they went together. And they thought that they were getting a great deal. And lo and behold, the men's team, who did not advance as far as the women's team, got paid much more in their salaries and bonuses, where the women's team did not. And I'm sure that there are other inequities that went along as well that I'm not privy to. But if you look up the lawsuit, I'm sure you can get more information.
Right, and the point of that story, why I kept saying, sorry, explain that, is because someone and then a group of people were willing to say no more, right? And they're using the courts. I mean, I think that it's people saying, either individually or together as a group, saying, that ain't working that way. I'm not gonna, what if the entire women's soccer team stepped down? I think a lot of people would be upset. But you gotta stand up, you gotta have the courage to say that ain't right.
And on that same note also, if you look at tennis, the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus, for a very long time, Grand Slam events, U.S. Open, Australian Open, French Open, the men had one salary and the women got another, or one prize money and the women got less. Until the Williams sisters started to speak up a little bit more, and they just stood together. They just stayed together. And now it's parallel. You win the U.S. Open, the male wins the U.S. Open, each one gets $1 million. If you're in second place, you still get $500,000, as opposed to, because you're a woman, you'll get $250 or $100. And that goes across the board for all of the Grand Slams. But it didn't start that way. And Billie Jean King, she thanks the Williams sisters, one, for keeping the level of play up so high and being good sports about it out there and drawing a crowd or drawing support. That this women's soccer team, because they're so successful, they have a lot of support. Right. And then you start to get people backing you, get behind you, male or female. They're behind you like, those women really play well, and they won.
Similarly, we should get behind the women's soccer team.
Oh, definitely.
And we can do that, right? You can tweet out support. You can make sure your friends know about it. Think of something clever to tweet out and make it go viral.
And
we
go to
should
the game,
support
too.
them.
Go to the games.
Yeah.
Go to the games.
Question?
Here's a microphone. Speak up.
I wanted to ask, do you ever feel afraid or like shocked when you see someone that's taller and played basketball longer than you did and you feel like you're gonna lose?
Yes, Gail deferred that to me. I'm just barely 5'2". I say 5'2", but I don't really think I am. In my mind, I'm 6 foot, honestly. And Zach is sitting in the back, and he's watched my entire career. He's the commissioner of the City University. So welcome, Zach. And he will tell you that my personality is like I'm beyond 6 foot. So play regardless of your height. Play like you want to play. Have the passion, whatever sport, whether it's soccer, basketball, softball, and whatever sport that you so choose, bike riding, swimming, just have passion to do it. And don't worry about whose height and who's more experienced and who has more talent, because we play sports because we love it. And if we're competitive at it, then you just keep working harder at it. The harder you work, the more time and effort and commitment that you have, the more you'll enjoy it.
And can I just add to that? It doesn't matter. So you walk in a room and someone's taller than you. Who cares? All you can do is bring yourself. Whether the other person is tall, short, faster, all you have is what you have. And that's the game you're going to play. Be best at your game, bring that game, and play it. It's true for campaigns also. I mean, I ran against the machine. At the end of the day, I ran against the New York Times. All the political support was for my opponent. But my game wasn't about endorsements. It wasn't about getting the Times endorsement, although that was really rough. My game was people. That was my game. I knew that was going to be my game going in, so I didn't pay attention to any of the endorsements. It's not my game to have endorsements. My game was person to person to person to person saying, hey, let me tell you about me, and here's why you should vote for me. Your game as an athlete is going to build on your strengths as an athlete. And whether that's whatever jargon you used, cross-court,
Crossover dribble.
crossover dribble, and
Crossover, little tipping. There you go.
Yeah.
You're sounding good. You sound like a play-by-play now.
Yeah, play forward.
play for?
Whatever your
Tell
game
the young
is.
lady. Tell the young lady
Yeah.
right there.
You know, it's your game, and you just have to be good at it. Doesn't matter wherever anyone else is.
Any other questions? Question?
You asked killer questions.
Okay, so you mentioned Title IX. I know that's more applicable to like education and schoolgirls, but for some of us that are in college and we're heading out into the real world, we might have jobs that are not in athletics but more directed toward the legal field, like, well, not the legal field, the executive world, like Wall Street and things like that. So there's an equal pay opportunity for women. So I know there's 2 requirements that you have to approve in order to like sue your company, and that's disparate impact and disparate treatment. So for women that work in certain fields, like how do you go about that? Because I know some corporations have the right to fire you if you ask your constituent or coworker about their salary. Yeah, they won't directly say like, oh, you're fired for asking, but they can fire you for asking.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we just changed that law in New York City.
Okay, so what if you don't want to work in New York City? What's the generalization about it?
Well, that's true. You might work in, I don't know, Ohio or Texas, and that could be the law down there, but it doesn't stop you. We still have this thing called free speech, and you're still allowed to ask, how much do you make? And if your colleague wants to divulge what he or she makes, then you can. But just think about it. If you're going to get fired because you speak up and just ask a question, 2 things. 1, do you want that job? Do you want to be in that role? And then the other thing is, maybe you're supposed to be in that role. Maybe you're supposed to be in a spot where you are supposed to speak up, where you're supposed to uncover the inequities that are going on.
Yep.
All right? It didn't just start today. Obviously, you got that job, and be it a higher power or be it your gut, you're supposed to be in there. You're supposed to speak up. That's part of paying it forward. It's part of the ladies on the panel here going through not getting the job that they wanted, not getting the pay that they wanted, not getting selected for the team, wearing crappy uniforms, and making a fuss about it so that years later down the line, you have no semblance of that at all. I love these warm-ups that say John Jay and all of this and women's basketball. I had zero, zilch, nothing. I had to take my stuff home and wash it and bring it back. So, I mean, it's going forward. Everything keeps going forward. So if you get into that spot, be it in New York City, and the councilwoman is saying, no, it's not happening here anymore, and if you land in some other place in the world or in the country, you know, you got to speak up. You got to be the one. It's your turn, all right? It's your turn. Speak up.
That is absolutely the case. And it's true about your salary, but it's true about the work you do. If there's stuff going on that doesn't, there's a reason you're in that job. Somebody hired you to do that job. And you have to speak up in that job. I mean, we just went through this thing on the Upper West Side where all the elected officials to this day don't support an action that I put forward on the Upper West Side. It would not have happened had I not spoken up about it. But I did, and I spoke up forcefully. And now for the first time in 50 years, 2 schools that have been segregated, 2 public elementary schools that have been segregated since Wagner was mayor, are now going to be integrated. Wouldn't have happened had I not spoke up, right? And it was just in my gut, hey, that ain't right. And the other electeds were piling on the other direction. I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this smart so that I win, you know? And I strategized out a whole plan, and over the course of 2 months, you know, we won, they lost. So there you have it. You
Okay.
speak up.
So I'm going to ask the final question to the panelists, and that is this. What is the next chapter in your life?
I guess I'll start. The next chapter, I just finished as an athletic director. I was in CUNY, as I said, for 25 years. And I've started my own consulting company that deals with paying it forward, basically. I want to go out and mentor and train and educate coaches to be better coaches. I find that some coaches go into coaching with great intention, some good experience in their sport, but they don't have that holistic approach to coaching. And I feel that with all my experiences, I started coaching back when I was a freshman in high school. And I've had a lot of experience, both with students, parents, other coaches, administrators, and so I would like to give back, and so that's what I'm doing. As well as I go and work with teams and do team building. I do a lot of fun stuff. We go in and do a lot of team building activities to kind of coordinate and build team chemistry within the whether it be individual teams or your athletic program, just to understand team unity, passion, and accountability. Those are the three main important ingredients to a successful team. So that's the next chapter in my book.
That's great.
That's good. And since she said book, I really need to put my story to paper. I've been saying it probably for 20 years, but I got to write it down. I have to put my memoir together so it's something lives a little bit longer than me. So although I'm working another job and coming out to speak to you, I have to write it all down. I got to get it going.
Great.
I hope I
Can I
nose
have a
to the
book party?
grandstand.
You're going to give me a book party? Say you're going to host a book party
Oh,
for me?
in a heartbeat.
There you go.
All right. Will that make it happen?
I'll line it up. It'll help me.
All
It'll
right.
help
You
me.
can definitely. You've been to my house, right?
I'm not sure.
Oh.
It was a very nice house, that
yeah,
place.
yeah,
Was that
yeah.
your
That
house?
one time.
Okay.
All right. We'll work that out. How about
And you're all
this?
invited to the party.
Yeah, you're all invited. It'd be great fun.
But you got to
I'm
buy
having
a
a
book.
book party.
I'm not coming up there without buying a book. They just want to come to eat. These are college kids.
Gotta buy the book.
They read
Um,
too.
I'll sign it.
I'm having a book party next week for a friend who just wrote a book. Why don't you come to that and see if you get inspired?
I'll see if I can do that. Okay.
All right.
All righty.
All right.
Okay,
all.
that's called
All right.
networking.
Oh,
All right?
yes, that's
right
right.
there, right in front of everybody.
Networking.
All right. Councilwoman, your
I
next chapter.
I have no idea.
All right. Well, at least we know we got that book party next week. Yeah. So, to our panelists, I can't thank you enough for coming today. These are important, powerful, and therefore very, very busy women. And they took time out of their schedule, which is mad crazy, as people would like to say, and came here to be with you and to share what are some really important ideas and their life experiences, right? Life experience is a really valuable thing because it takes a really long time to get it. And so they have life experiences and they've shared it for you. So how about a really large round of applause? Secondly, I would like to say thank you to you, the audience. You've been very attentive, questions were excellent, and hopefully you took something away. I can't imagine that you haven't. So I would like to say thank you very much because you are important and powerful and busy women, and you took time out of your day and your life to come here. So thank you for that.